Good morning. There's a lot of people with smiles on their faces this morning, and there's a lot of people not with smiles on their faces of a certain persuasion. But whilst we can laugh and whilst we can have a bit of joy at the state of that lot across the city, we need to take into consideration that our manager isn't too happy, and we didn't sign any players last night. Brendan Rodgers, there's been a couple of timelines across this transfer window that we've been looking at closely. Brendan Rodgers wanted players in before the start of pre-season so that he can give the players the full pre-season. And we did get some players in, maybe not to the standard that was required. We brought in Inamura as a backup left back to Kieran Tierney, a player that's only got 1 year's football experience. And Brendan Rodgers was asked why he wasn't put into the team. Now we're going to talk about Stengs in a minute, so make sure that you stay tuned to the video so you can hear what my thoughts on Stengs. And Brendan Rodgers said that Inamura, if I'm going to put him on against Yamal, it's not going to work. Let's be honest. Yamal's played football all his days. This guy's played football for a year. It's not happening, and he's not got the quality and he's not got the experience to play at Champions League level, no matter what people in the back end of Celtic may think. Now, Brendan Rodgers then looked at the fact that we had until the 14th of August. That date came and passed, and Celtic fans were sitting with bated breath to see if we brought in any players. And then Brendan Rodgers told us we have until 24 hours to bring in 2 wild cards. Now the team has been lodged with UEFA. And we did have until yesterday to bring in 2 players, and we didn't, and we haven't. Brendan Rodgers said yesterday, it's looking like that I'm going to have to go with the players that I have here, and he's hoping that we get in the quality required to go into the Champions League. Yes, we should have the quality to get past this team. I think that Adam Ida will start now. You can all have your say in the comments about Adam Ida, as you will, but he's the most experienced striker that we have. Unfortunately, he's a player that scored 20 goals this season. He needs to get off the mark tonight. Celtic, Brendan Rodgers anyway was hoping to bring in another player, but are the board dicing with £40 million profit? £40 million. Brendan Rodgers said yesterday to the players that are thinking about will they or won't they be here at the end of the transfer window, just remember this one thing. The money will go into your bank at the end of every month. And when it does, it's Celtic that comes up in the bank statement. Just remember that and give your all for the club whilst you're here. Who was he talking about? Obviously, this was before he was even asked about Stephen Welsh, who there's been a bid for. He said that the initial bid was for a loan and option to buy for Stephen Welsh. Marco Tilio, there's been a bid of 1.3 million from Austria, with the obligation, well, a loan with the obligation to buy. And I think Celtic want to get these deals. I think the backroom, the men upstairs are just saying, look, we don't really want to do a loan. We just want the players out the door. Just give us the money right now. And that's the way we'll do our business. You know, you pay us for the player and never mind this loan nonsense. Even though Celtic have done it successfully over the years with Jota, with Paulo Bernardo. He was asked about Paulo Bernardo yesterday and he said, look, it's a really tight midfield. This is there's a lot of competition there, but when you come into the Champions League, when we get into that and when we get into the season, we will need to rotate the players a lot more, so Paulo Bernardo will get his game time. What players do you think will start tonight? Tell me in the comment section. We will be going live 1.5 hours before the game this evening to talk about our prediction for players and see what Brendan Rodgers does. He's going to go with the best possible 11 on the pitch. That's a certainty, and it'll be interesting to see which ones make the bench from the squad that has been named. But Brendan Rodgers is a man that's not happy. Let's face it. The picture of him yesterday, and he was asked about Jamie Vardy's situation. He said that he knows the player well. He says, of course, I've worked with Jamie and we worked really well together. But he was brilliant for me at my time in Leicester. So no, there's been no names floated about that I would disclose to anyone. Of course he's not. This is the man who told us after Kyogo left that he knew 6 months before Kyogo wanted to leave. I think he also knows that he's about to lose one of his top stars And I don't think it matters if we're going to the Champions League or not if Dyson's sold. I think Dyson's indicated that he wants away. He's only got 2 years left on his contract. So has Stengs from Feyenoord. Now let's get on to him. Because he's a player that can play on the right wing. He can play in central midfield and he can play as attacking midfield. Where the hell does he fit into the Celtic team then? Because we've got an awful lot of midfielders. Celtic are obviously going to try and use him as a winger. Now, that player himself once had a valuation of 20 million. Now, that's collapsed since 2019 when he was at AZ Alkmaar. He went to America after being at Royal Antwerp and stuff, and he's ended up at Feyenoord. Now, he does only have 2 years left on his contract. And it doesn't look like he wants to sign a new deal with them. So Feyenoord are looking at the reality of selling the player this window. Does it sound familiar? Daizen Maeda, allegedly in talks with Celtic, and depend on what article you read, the talks have stalled because his agent wants to move him on, and he's only got 2 years left on his contract. Does sound familiar, doesn't it? I don't want to be negative about the whole Daizen Maeda thing. I mean, when the story came out of Japan on that Twitter feed around about 10 days ago now, you can only report what's kind of out there, and that story is not going away at all. I think if we lose the Champions League game, he'll be sold anyway. And even if we win it, I think that he'll be sold and Steggs will be brought in as one of the wingers. Hopefully we can bring in two wingers. But we'll wait and see what the Celtic board are doing, because ultimately the Celtic board are playing with fire. Who else might want away in the club? I think that's the big question that we need to ask ourselves. As we go into this game this evening, it's a winner-takes-all scenario, as we've seen in the game last night. And it's all fun and games, I was sitting laughing at that lot. But the reality is, the interview with the manager yesterday and the negativity that was oozing from the manager, when you look at some of the interviews last season at the beginning of the Champions League, the smiles, the glow from Brendan Rodgers, the flame has been extinguished by the board and by the actions of the board. Now, whether or not you believe that the board are doing a good job, whether the board are holding Brendan Rodgers back, whether you believe that the board are saying, well, you know what, you're not going to sign a new contract, so maybe we're not going to give you the money to spend on players. Why should we give you 15 to 20 million to spend on players and put them on 4 or 5 year contracts when the next manager might not actually fancy those players? They might not be to the standard that he wants. Brendan Rodgers has flipped his coin, and he said right at the beginning of the season, look, it's a two-way thing here. I'm not here to just maintain the club. And I think that that's the reality of where the club are actually going at the moment. We're in maintenance mode. I've said before, and I said last season, that this season could be a period of managed decline. You can still keep on winning things, and we've done it before under Ronnie, we've done it under Gordon Strachan, we've done it under many managers where you reduce the wage bill, you keep on winning, but there is that decline in the squad as it keeps going down in quality, and this is what Brendan Rodgers doesn't want. You even had Callum McGregor yesterday talking about the continuation. You know, in Japan they call it Kaizen. Not Daizen, they call it Kaizen, and it's about continuous improvement. Google it. It's something that was used when I did my diploma in production and inventory management a long time ago. It was always about making processes better, and they will use it in making the team better. And you can only keep on going up small increments. And if you want to continue, we did well in the Champions League last year, and if you want to just keep on maintaining and getting into that, there's a big fear that we might not get into the top 24. You know, we might not maintain that standard. With the current squad, we could do fine. But with a little bit of additions, both Callum and Brendan have said, the two of them are on the same hymn sheet. Do you know, they two are like that. They're probably the only two in Celtic that are like that when it comes to the hierarchy of Celtic, because I don't think that Paul Tisdale's even on the same hymn sheet as Brendan Rodgers, or he would be pushing for the players that Brendan Rodgers ultimately wants and needs. Brendan Rodgers said about 2 weeks ago now, I'm not doing enough to convince the board of the players I want. It's a damning, it's telling us out there. Brendan Rodgers is very mindful, and if you watch that interview back, and it amazes me that you can get a meltdown video get 20,000-30,000 views, but then that video from Celtic yesterday's had about 6,000 views with Brendan. And it's one of the most important videos that any Celtic fan should be watching, because watching that full interview with Brendan and seeing the emotions, the range of emotions that he went through, up and down, he's not hiding it. He's not hiding it at all. He's not hiding the fact that he wants Celtic to be better. He wants the best for Celtic. You can think about what happened the last, and I do not think he will walk out. I don't think he'll walk before the end of the season, before people start jumping on it. And I wouldn't blame him for leaving, because this board, and as we've said on the live last night, we go through a little 2-year love spell. We've done it with Brendan his first year round. 2 years, you get everything they want. Third year, nah, maybe not. We've done it under Ange. First 2 years, everything you want. Ange comes out in the media and says, let's spend 10 million on a player and sell him for 30. Nah, the board are like, nah, it's not happening. There's the love fallout on the third year. Brendan Rodgers this time round had everything he wanted, got good money to spend. People said, he's not valued, the value's not there. The value's not there. Well, the value's there with Arne Engels. There is nobody in Celtic. And if you look at the way that Arne Engels was so frustrated in the way that he's putting in these perfect corners and we're not sticking them in the back of the net. If you look at the frustration when there was one, he floated in a beautiful corner, and you're thinking, just stick it in. And Engels is fucking raging at the corner of the pitch, just off picture. As long as we win tonight, everything will be fine. I think we'll win 4-0. Tell me your score prediction in the comment section. I think it will be 4-0, and I think that Celtic will get the job pretty much done tonight. It's going to be a hard job. That team had 27 fouls in their last game in the Champions League. 27 fouls. It's going to be a dirty game. So Adam Ida will start because of his physicality. I know you don't want him to start, and I know that you're thinking, is he really the best we've got? Yes, because he's the most experienced. He scored 20 goals last season. Brendan Rodgers can only go with the stats that he's got. There's more chance of him scoring a goal than there is anyone else at the moment, statistically, allegedly. But it's the best of a bad bunch. Let's face it. When you've got Johnny Kenny that has the potential, when you've got Shin Yamada, we're not sure what position's his best position yet. We get told he was faster than Dyson and better than Kyogo. Well, he's neither at the moment. Kyogo left a long time ago. Anyway, make sure you join me an hour and a half before the game tonight, where we will get the team as it's coming out. We'll do our score predictions once the team is out, and hopefully this man tonight will have a big smile on his face, unlike his counterpart at the other end of the city, who was just morbid and said that things will get better. Anyway, make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't, because there's around about 60% of people that watch the channel aren't subscribed, strangely enough. Anyway, on that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world.